Everyone, it is finally time to talk about the best wrestlers in the world competing at the 2024 Olympic Wrestling Games. This video will primarily talk about men's freestyle, but I will leave some honorable mentions on who to look out for in every other style at the end of the video. With that said, this video took a while to make, so be sure to strap in everyone, and if you know the drill already, be sure to like and subscribe, and comment your favorite wrestler in the comment section down below. Because we are talking about every single wrestler competing in men's freestyle at the 2024 Olympic Games. So I'll get into this topic more as we go through the video and specific weight classes, but this year all the Russian drama really stole all the Olympic wrestling news for a little while at least. It also super delayed this video with seeds constantly changing week over week. To be honest, the research process for this video was for sure an interesting development. For starters, since there's 8 seeds now and most Russians would have been seeded, I had to adjust that a lot. Also, due to how the seeds work at the Olympic and World Championships, sometimes a wrestler would get pulled in that didn't even qualify and he'd be a top 8 seed, which drastically changes matchups. So I had to wait for most of those entries to be announced by the UWW, some of which took a while to get announced. Then some of the Russians were still in even after the ban of some of the best Russians in the field, but then seconds before the official entries, they were all pulled, resulting in some new entries needing to be added to the script. But at the end of the day, this video is for the die-hard and casual fans. I want people to watch this and actually know who is wrestling, especially when their native country isn't on the board. Because before I was a die-hard wrestling fan, I would watch the World Championships and have no idea about any of the other wrestlers besides from my native country. But trust me, when you actually know the storylines behind some of these wrestlers, every match, every round, and every moment just becomes that much more impressive for these athletes. Plus, it's just an overall good experience. I mean, think of the NFL. If you only knew one lineman, it probably wouldn't be that exciting for you, but when you know every single player, it becomes that much more exciting. It's kind of like the fantasy perspective. But anyway, that's enough news for this section, because I also have to highlight, if you want more of a cheat sheet besides scanning through this video, there's a spreadsheet in the description below with details for all the athletes, including their medals in the last quad and head-to-head wins, along with some other honorable mention moments. So if you are unsure about a foreign wrestler on match day, be sure to check out the cheat sheet, but do that after you watch this video entirely. Finally, to do a video like this, I needed some form of organization, so it's not just me listing names off in random order. So for each weight, we'll talk about all the seeded wrestlers, which is only top 8. Then I'll talk about the scariest unseeded wrestlers or landmines that could make some serious noise in the bracket, and then some dark horse unseeded wrestlers as well. Then we'll wrap up with a tier list per weight, so best chance to win gold is tier 1, best chance to medal is tier 2, dark horses to medal or essentially make the bronze medal match is tier 3, and then the final tier or tier 4 is the guys on the outside looking in who probably don't have the best chance to medal or just don't have a ton of data behind their name. I try to be as unbiased as possible with some of my comments in these tiers, but please let me know if I accomplish that in the comment section below. Now that we have some recent news and video formatting out of the way, let's finally talk about our first Olympic weight class with 57 kilograms. Now here is a quick look at the bracket, with the first quad to look at being the number 1 seed Stefan Micic of Serbia. Well, that is just sad news. Yes, due to a knee injury, Stefan Micic is out for the Olympics. However, what exactly does this mean for, well, the video and the competition? Well, to be quick with the video, it's a little too late for me to change the entire 57 kilogram field. I'll update the Google Drive sheet, so don't worry about that when you're watching, but I'm going to leave my original thoughts in here. Please note though, I believe all the seeds should bump up, so Muhammad of Egypt will be the new 8 seed here, and whatever number is associated with the wrestler I'm talking about will get bumped up. Obviously, that's going to change things drastically if everyone's bumping up seeds. I mean, some people are going to jump sides. For example, Carpe at the 4 is going to go over to the 3, which is drastically different than where it was at before. But like I said, you might have to use your imagination a little bit, but if you get confused, open up the Google Sheet. Sorry about that, guys. Next question is, who exactly is going to replace Stefan Micic? I know if there's a country that didn't qualify the weight but brought the guy as like a training partner, he might get the spot. That's kind of far-fetched. If Serbia has a backup wrestler, they'll instantly get the spot over everyone else. But who knows if they brought someone, and who knows who Stefan trains with. I mean, he trains out of Michigan to start with, so. But either way, we just don't know. We know how the seeds are going to bump up, but we don't know who's going to fill in there, and maybe the 1 seed will just get a bye of the quarters. Either way, I tried to edit around this moments before the first day of wrestling, so I hope it came out alright. Now, for those who don't know, third place is a little different compared to American tournaments. It's basically follow the leader style, and there is 2 bronze medals. So if you lose to a finalist, you can wrestle for bronze, and it's kind of like a mini tournament between everyone the finalists beat. So essentially, the top side and the bottom side of the bracket are their own separate tournament, where the 2 champs meet to win gold or take silver, where everyone who lost to the finalists battles back for their own separate bronze medal. But to get back to 57 kilograms, we have the 1 seed Rei Higuchi, the former 2 seed, and him bumping up here is actually huge for the bracket. For starters, I think Higuchi is definitely a good pick to win gold here. Higuchi has just done it all, to be honest. He won Worlds at 61 kilograms in 2022, and like I said, took silver last year at 57 kilograms, and he honestly probably would have been a huge favorite in the 2021 games, but had a lot of weight issues, so he did not compete. Muhammad of Egypt is our 8th seed, and he was originally slotted in here, and then after some Russian pullouts, they brought in Karpe, so then he was outside the top 8, and then he was back in at the top 8 now because of the Micic situation. Yeah, it was just a lot of back and forth, but now I think he is at least officially seeded, but I guess we'll see. You never know with this sport. As we look in the 4 and 5 seed quad, this is where we see things really starting to shake up with the seeds bumping up. I guess I'll start with Abrakarov of Albania, who was the original 5 seed, but now the 4 seed, so not many things changed for him besides who his potential quarterfinalist opponent might be. My opinion, an Abrakarov versus Higuchi semifinal to make the gold medal match sounds absolutely amazing, and I really hope we get it. But I guess I should go back just a little bit. So again, Abrakarov is from Albania, and he only recently broke onto the scene in 2022 for most, being a former Russian who beat Thomas Gilman in 2022 to win a world title and took bronze in 2023. And this dude has some serious great wins. He split with Micic, the 1 seed as we mentioned, and has beat several other top tier wrestlers in this field, along with former Olympic and mentioned champ from Russia Ugoyev, which was a really big milestone for him. He also was the flag bearer for Albania, which doesn't mean much on his wrestling success, but I thought I'd mention it. Shawat, or Aman as people call him, looked really great at the last chance qualifier, and is a young up-and-comer who's starting to gather some wins for himself for sure. However, Abrakarov did beat him pretty bad last year at the World Championships, and I still think Shawat gets beat by all the top tier talent, but who knows, he's a gritty wrestler, so anything could happen. Then we move to our new 3 versus 6 quad for our potential quarterfinal matchup. With the 6th seed, we have Zhao from China, who went on a pretty impressive run at the last chance qualifier to take 3rd. And to be honest, he's a very bulky wrestler that's hard to move around on your feet, and he can be pretty scrappy at times. His potential quarterfinal matchup could be against a 3 seed Karpe from Kazakhstan. Karpe was a pretty late addition to the Olympic Games. After Russia officially pulled out of the tournament, he got pulled in and got slotted to be seeded 4th, but then after the Micic news, he got bumped up to be seeded 3. So he went from a side that had 2 world champions on it to where he would have had to have beaten one of them in the quarterfinals potentially, to where now the hardest opponent on his side, for now at least, there's no random draws in this bracket yet, is a world bronze medalist, which Hartunian's no slouch, but it's a lot different than having 2 world champs on your side. I think Karpe is a pretty tough wrestler, don't get me wrong there, but his best wins only really came from last year's Worlds where he took 6, just missing out on qualification. But besides that, he doesn't have too many other top tier results. Then to wrap up this literal last second edit fix, we have the 2 and 7 quad, starting with Armenia's Arsen Hartunia, who could put up some serious points in bunches, and for a high seed, I'd argue he might be a sleeper pick to make the finals, especially if you go back and watch his match against Higuchi where he nearly beat him. This is editor Tanner during this quick little edit. Hartunya is without a doubt a heavy favorite now to make that gold medal match. He went from having Rei Higuchi on his side, who he almost beat, yes, but Higuchi did get the win, to now being the only recent world medalist on his side of the bracket. Granted, there is some scary random draws that he probably doesn't want, but for right now, oh my gosh, is his side a cakewalk for him. Then to wrap up our new seeds at 57 kilograms, we have Abuldayev of Uzbekistan, and he was seconds away from being the former Olympic champ Ugoyev from Russia, who was banned from this tournament, so he will not be in the games. Abuldayev hasn't medaled at Worlds in the last quad, but is always very close to, and is for sure a threat to anyone in the bracket. I honestly think an Abuldayev versus Hartunian potential quarterfinal could be really fun. As long as Abuldayev doesn't give up major points in bunches, I think it could be pretty competitive too. Then we can move into some unseeded wrestlers at 57 kilograms, which, as you'll see throughout the video, is a lot of fun to look into because we have no idea where these guys will be placed until the night before. I think we all can agree in one way or another, all the seeded wrestlers here at 57 kilograms probably deserve to place. But in all reality, only 2 wrestlers per side medal. And with some of these unseeded wrestlers, you slowly start to realize there will be some hammers not even given a chance to battle for bronze. But that's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. So let's talk about some unseeded 57 kilogram wrestlers to watch out for. I'm sure the biggest one maybe in the whole Olympics that people are talking about is Spencer Lee for USA. He for the most part dominated his way through the last qualifier to make the finals and qualify for the games, and he also beat a world champ to make the team in Thomas Gilman. I honestly think the biggest thing that separates him from what we've seen is his parterre offense. For those who don't know what parterre means, that means when he's on top turning people. If he's getting on top, he's probably going to turn you and has several ways to do it. But every great turner has to be able to get on top, and some of the greats in the weight are really good at head-hands defense and being able to scramble in those positions. And to be honest, I don't know what side would be better for him. This is editor Tanner again. It's the bottom side. Put Spencer on the bottom side. I think he'd crush the top side too. It's just bottom side will definitely suit him better for his style. That is all. Another wrestler I thought I'd mention here is Kyrgyzstan's rep Almaz Ulu, who will be another unseeded rep. He has a win over Vito Arujau from the 2022 U23 57 kilogram bracket, and he beat Zhao before. I seriously think if he's in the quad with Zhao and Carpe at the 3 and 6, he could seriously become a medal threat. Honestly, there's a few guys that I think if they slip into that quad, they could become medal threats. Heck, you beat Carpe and then Zhao, or the other way around, then all you have to do is win one more match to take bronze or make the gold medal match. So then to wrap up the field, here is some names I personally think are on the outside looking in for a few reasons. Those reasons being past results aren't really that promising for high performance here, or there is very little data to back them up at this weight class. For example, there is Roman Bravo Young for Mexico that a lot of Penn State fans know about. I think RBY is solid, but just based on his very small freestyle pool of results, I don't know if he could go on a run here. The very same is true for another national champ for America wrestling for Puerto Rico in Darian Cruz. He has come somewhat close to placing at Worlds before, but normally falls to the top tier talent. But he's gone on some huge upset runs before, so I got Darian Cruz's back. Azerbaijan's wrestler Razadzi is a 2021 U23 gold and is a pretty young rep for them. He did qualify out of Euros, so he can't be terrible, and he's somewhat of a scary unseeded wrestler, I'd say. Kamal Muhammad was super close to being seeded for Egypt, but fell just outside the top 8. This happened because Carpe was a late pull in. To wrap up tier 4, there is Luna Faith, who came out of the African qualifier for Guinea-Bissau. And then the final outsider looking in is Vladimir Igorov for North Macedonia, who was also a pull-in from some of the Russians being pulled out. He does have a win over Razadi, so that's something to note as well. Then as we start restating some names, this is the dark horse tier to potentially medal. These are guys that could get into the bronze medal match with some upsets, bracket destruction, just super lucky placement, or a combination of all three to earn a medal. For me, I think the 6th seed in Sharwat or Aman of India, China's 7th seed Zhao Uli of Kyrgyzstan, and the 4th seed Karpe of Kazakhstan are definitely in this tier. They'll either have some good wins or a good win, and have at least some notable wins over the unseeded wrestlers, which bumps them out of tier 4. Then for tier 2, these are guys for sure fighting for bronze or 5th, so a good shot to make the bronze medal round. This one might anger some people, but he has such little data with this senior level field, so I'm putting Spencer Lee for USA here. I think he can for sure win gold, but because of the lack of data and that Zhao match is still lingering in my head, I have to put him in tier 2 for now. My other pick for tier 2 is Abuldayev of Uzbekistan, but he's a weird one here because I could see him doing really well or drawing a tough first round match and being done early. Then finally, for 57 kilograms, we have our large tier 1. These are guys that I think will for sure be in the hunt for gold or to make the finals. And oddly enough, the top 4 seeds are going to be taking this tier over. We'll start with Stefan Micic, a returning world champ who buzzer beater Aberkarov of Albania, who also beat Micic during his 2022 world run. Then there's also Rei Higuchi, who is a returning silver medalist and Olympic silver all the way back in 2016 for Japan. Then finally, this wrestler might get some gripes for being in tier 1, but I have to go with Hartunian, primarily because of his placement. Being the 3 seed and being on the same side of Higuchi, who he nearly beat last year, is really great for him. But like everything in this sport, we'll just have to wait and see, especially as we move to our next weight class, which is even crazier in 65 kilograms. Oh, 65 kilograms, the weight of weights that is always the wildest. Please be warned, the second tier for 65 kilograms is quite large, but we'll get to that when we get to it. For now, let's look at the top 8 seeds, shall we? And we'll start with the 1 seed Vazgen Tavayan, who is an Armenian wrestler, and then there is of course Tolga Tumar Ochir at the 8 seed from Mongolia. Ochir is seriously like the American Slayer, being every major 65 kilogram guy we got over here in the States. Tavayan took bronze last year at Worlds after being seconds away from making the World Finals, and his side of the bracket is pretty similar to his World bracket. So he'll be looking to get some revenge over the 4 seed Sebastian Rivera for Team Puerto Rico and several-time All-American for Rutgers. Rivera beat Tavayan in the last seconds of their semifinal match at last year's Worlds. I would also like to say though, Rivera could not be set up any better, because if Tavayan's side of the bracket's pretty similar, Rivera's for sure is. With the 5 seed being Maxim Shackleton, who was pulled into the game, slide in at the 5 seed. So excluding Rivera's first round match, which could be very tough at the random draw, he has 2 wrestlers he has already beat to make the World Finals. Yes, his Tavayan win was a buzzer beater, but still a note here. And I've barely mentioned the wrench from Mongolia Ochir, who could ruin everyone's plans. He is a win over Tavayan during his 2021 world medal run, but he did lose to Alvarez. But he did lose to Aliyev last year, who Tavayan eventually beat. But if you play the change of property with this weight, you'll just go crazy, so we'll move on from that. All I'm really trying to say is Ochir is a nice pick here for the top side, but this side I could also see going bottoms up real fast. On the bottom side of the bracket, we have more wild action. The 3 seed is the returning world champion, and in my opinion, probably the best technical wrestler in Musakayev for Hungary. As most know, his gas tank is super poor, and that has resulted in most of his losses. However, if his gas tank is the same as last year's world championships, he is hands down the favorite to win here. However, at the 6th seed is the returning Olympic silver medalist Haji Aliyev, who has been a world champ before, but that was back in 2017, 15, and 14. Like I said, he is the returning silver for the games, but Aliyev also didn't place at any of the world championships in this quad. Then to finish up our seeded wrestlers, we have the 2 seed from Iran, Amazad, who is the 2022 World Champion, who honestly might be my pick to win here. He lost in the very last seconds to Musakayev at Worlds last year, and if Musakayev's gas tank is any less than his last year, I don't really think he stands a chance against Amazad. But in Amazad's way is a 7 seed and last chance qualifier finalist Dudoyev of Albania, who is a former Russian wrestler. Good time to note, despite Russia not competing at the games, there is plenty of Russians throughout these brackets. And in some weights like this one and 57 kilograms, the tougher Russian is still in the bracket. Now there is some massive unseeded landmines in this weight. I mean, to be honest, every weight class is like that, but 65 kilograms is just something special. The first being the 70 kilogram world champion Zain Rettiford. He recently lost to Ochir of Mongolia, but he seems to have mastered the weight plan down to 65 kilograms, which has been a struggle for him. So that is a huge factor. If he is operating like he does at 70 kilograms, he will be tough to beat here at the Olympic Games. There is also Kyoka of Japan, please comment down below if I'm saying that wrong, who actually beat out returning Olympic champ Otoguru for the spot, which is super wild to me, and shows he must have really earned it in Japan's qualification process. At the last ranking series, Kyoku actually beat Musakayev, which isn't really uncommon for him to take weird losses, but thought I'd mention it. Aliyev and Kyoku also wrestled at that last ranking series with Aliyev winning, but still a fun entry for Japan. Akamata Aliyev is a world medalist up at 70 kilograms, which is very similar to USA's Rep Rettiford. He placed in 2022 and 2021, placing bronze and silver. He also has a huge win over the 1 seed Tavayan, so I'm sure that's a random draw the 1 seed does not want to see. Now we can start our tier 4 with our outsiders looking in. Starting with the unseeded wrestler from Australia, Okoroku, coming out of the African qualifier. Deshbishvili, I think that's how you say that, of Georgia is another tough wrestler in this field, but in a field like this, it's super hard to bump him up into tier 3. Maybe in the 4 and 5 seed quad, he could potentially make some noise, which honestly, speaking of that, I'm going to have to put Shackleton, the 5 seed, also in this tier. Also in tier 4, I'm including a Japan transfer who wrestles for Samoa now in Akazawa. He has some skills, don't get me wrong, but again, it's really hard to justify him in a tier 3, which again, is just the dark horses to medal. And with that said, I think it's no better time to move on to tier 3. Those candidates are another American wrestling for Mexico now who beat USA's rep from last year's Worlds in Austin Gomez. He has some serious knockout power, but not a ton of data behind him yet, besides beating Nick Lee, which honestly is good enough to put him into tier 3 for now. Valdez Tobir of Cuba has some skills as well, but he's honestly getting kinda old, so a good definition of a dark horse. The previous mentioned Akhmat Taliev of Kyrgyzstan is also here in this tier because his success is super draw dependent. Finally in tier 3 is the 7 seed Dudoyev of Albania, who has a win over Rashidov, the former Russian world teamer, which is pretty good to raise your stock. But he's also stuck in the Amuzad quad and the Musakayev side of the bracket, so yeah, that's a little less than ideal. Then we have our massive tier 2 of wrestlers that could be in the top 5, starting with America's own Zain Rettiford, who like most of these unseeded wrestlers is super draw dependent. Tavayan of Armenia, who is probably the highest seed that most random draws want, at least in my opinion. Aliyev, who is the returning silver, but looked really off at the 2023 Worlds. Kyoku is a young and somewhat unknown in this field, but if he beat out Otoguru, he can only be trouble for whoever he draws. I think Ochir at the 8 seed had some rough draws in the qualifying process, but he made it to the games and he has a pretty solid draw here at the Olympics. Finally, there is Sebastian Rivera at the 4 seed, and his draw is too solid not to put him here. Plus, he's the returning world silver, so I'll put some respect on his name. Then we'll wrap it up with tier 1 for 65 kilograms, where I'm putting Amazad of Iran and Musakayev for Hungary, the 2022 and 2023 world champions, and a rematch from last year's semifinal. Hopefully doing it again here at the Olympics. I could see the top side going totally crazy at this weight, but I honestly really want to see this match again, and the winner will for sure be the top pick for gold in the finals. Also, it's a shame that one of Russia's best wrestlers in Mamamedov won't be here to compete. He originally boycotted the boycott and was listed to attend, being the only Russian at the Olympics. Can you imagine that? That's just wild. He also would have been on the top side of the bracket away from both of the world champions, feeding into the Sebastian Rivera quad. But before we could even get excited about that, he got hurt, apparently.
Right.
So he's out similar to all the other top tier Russians. But similar to most weights, there is still a lot of Russians in these fields, just representing different flags. Alrighty, taking a look at the bracket for 74 kilograms. We have our first American to be seated at the number 1 in Kyle Dake, with the 8th seed being Bakor Endom of Guinea-Bissau, coming out of the African qualifier. Kyle Dake is honestly a huge favorite here at the games, but there is a lot of threats to him in this bracket that we will cover as we mention them. The biggest threat though to Kyle Dake will not be here at the games. He is a returning Olympic champion and returning world champion Sidakov, who is, you guessed it, a Russian wrestler. He beat Kyle Dake last year, giving Dake the silver medal at Worlds, but in 2022 and 2021, Dake was the gold winner and bronze medalist at the 2021 Olympics. So a lot of medals still behind Kyle Dake's name. I just really wanted to see Sidakov versus Dake Part 2, but not gonna happen. And that match will probably never happen again, considering Sidakov is moving to the MMA now. Also on the top side is a very tough quad between the 4 and 5 seeds. The 4 seed is Takatani of Japan, and he really pushed Kyle Dake last year at Worlds. He's just a super explosive wrestler and the 2023 World Bronze medalist with a ton of other talents. The 5 seed was a maybe for a very long time this summer in Hete Kabalov of Serbia, the other World Bronze medalist from 2023. He was pulled about a month or so ago from competing here, which resulted in Serbia saying they'll send Ali Arslan, who was a Greco-Iran transfer, so a pretty interesting fill-in for a freestyle spot. But rumors turned into reality for Kabalov. After being banned, he got pulled back in, taking over as the 5 seed. However, if he would not have wrestled, Iran's Amani would have gotten the 8 seed, making the top side of the bracket probably just as tough and way tougher for Kyle Dake, but that's not happening, and Amani is still a random draw who we'll get to in a second. On the bottom side of the bracket, the 2 versus 7 seed is another really good one, with the 7 seed being Sal Kazalnov, a former Russian wrestler for Slovakia. He once again almost missed the Olympics this year, which is crazy to me because his skill set is really high. He's made the World Finals in the last quad twice, being a World Silver in 2021 and 2022. The 2 seed is Turan Baymarov of Azerbaijan, who just missed out on qualifying at Worlds being the 6th, but got the very controversial win over Chamizo of Italy at Euros to qualify the weight for his country. Then at the 3 and 6 quad, we have the fun Greek wrestler at the 3 and official 5th place world finisher in, I've been practicing this one, Koumisidis of Greece. Can't knock me for trying, I guess. He also wrestled Kyle Dake really tough at Worlds last year, but we won't see that unless they both make the Olympic finals. He also beat Kadim Magomedov, who we will also talk about real soon, I promise. But for now, the next seed is the 6th seed in lieu of China, who is another Poland wrestler after all the qualifications from Russia dropped out. Then that only leaves us with some unseeded wrestlers I thought I'd mention before tiers. For starters, there is the story of Kadim Magomedov of Belarus, who will be wrestling as an independent athlete at the Olympic Games. He was the Olympic silver at the last games and historically beat Kyle Dake pretty bad in 2021. However, at Worlds last year, he lost to, oh boy, here we go again, Koumisidis of Greece in the opening round of the tournament, but looked super off. You could kind of tell Bellator fighting was his top priority at the time, which he was a part of. But he qualified through Euros and beat Sal Kazanov and several other greats in this tournament in the past 4 years. So in my opinion, a serious threat despite his world showing in 2023. Especially if he moved this to his major focus. But based around all the drama that he was dealing with up until literally days before competition, I'm not sure how true that could be. Also key to note, Frank Chamizo was a pull-in as well for the games for Italy, a former world champion and former Cuban wrestler who has wins over Jordan Burroughs. Valiev for Albania is another former Russian with some top tier wins like the former mentioned Baymarov, but another guy who is super draw dependent. Jonas Amani I also mentioned and was a bronze in 2022 for Iran, and he had a super I kind of sound like a broken record here, but super close match with Kyle Dake during the 2022 World Championships. So maybe one of the scariest random draws, especially for Kyle Dake just stepping off the scale. Then there's also Zamalov of Uzbekistan, who is getting a lot of talk right now, who was put in for Uzbekistan over their returning Olympic bronze Beksad, which really shows his skill set. Zamalov is another Russian transfer with wins over guys like Sal Kazanov and several others. He also won Russian Nationals a few years ago with brackets with Sidakov in it. He honestly might be the scariest random draw in the entire Olympics, pound for pound. His style of wrestling is just so Russian and so scary, it's just unbelievable. Kind of excited to watch him wrestle here. Then before we officially get into tier 4 for our guys on the outside looking in, please note this weight class has 18 wrestlers officially, compared to the usual 16. For starters, there was always going to be 17 at this weight class, with the refugee team getting a wrestler in, which is pretty cool, at least I think. And then Kadimakhamedov was out for Belarus, but after arguing that claim, he got back in. But it's not like they can just scratch one of the pull-ins once everyone's already at the Olympics, so here we are with 18 wrestlers. Now tier 4 starts with the 6th seed in Liu from China. In my opinion, he just doesn't have a lot of data behind him and no real top tier wins. The 8th seed in Notam is a scrapper for sure and not a cakewalk, but I would bet most unseeded guys would want him first round, and then Kyle Dake in round 2. Because if you really think about it, they either beat Kyle Dake and are the new favorite, or they lose to Kyle Dake and still have a high possibility of taking bronze and getting pulled back into the tournament. Montero of Venezuela battled tough at Pan Ams, but for sure an outsider along with Cuban Garzan. Husan of Egypt is another African qualifier in tier 4, and then finally, there is the refugee team wrestler in Iman Mohadev, who has a pretty wild story that you should all read up on, but similar to some in this tier, just not a lot of data on him, from a wrestling standpoint at least. Tier 3 is where things already start to get interesting, considering the level of tough wrestlers that are in this tier. It's also weird to consider there's going to be 2 rat tails here, so there could be some pretty elite wrestlers that are going to have to come out really strong. But starting us off is a world champ in Frank Chamizo of Italy. I don't know, I think he can for sure do really well and has a lot of wins over top seeds, but he is also starting to gather a lot of recent losses, or just not look the same. He just really didn't look that great at the last chance qualifier, which he shouldn't even had to have gone to. But anyway, here he is in tier 3. Speaking of the last chance qualifier though, Razin of Tajikistan looked really solid, making the finals there, and he did beat Valiev of Albania, who I'll also mention here in tier 3. Also, before we move on from these two, Razin and Valiev are also former Russians. Also, with the right placement and matchups, I could see both of these guys slipping into the bronze medal match. They're pretty solid in my opinion. The only reason they're in tier 3 is they are heavily draw dependent, and I just don't know where they're going to be, which could work for them or really against them. Then we slide over to tier 2, which is kind of big considering a lot of these guys, especially with their draws, could take home bronze or at least be in that match. Starting with Baymarov of Azerbaijan. I think most unseeded guys, especially like a Razadin, would want to get this match right out of the gate, because Razadin might honestly be the on-paper favorite against Baymarov. And a Razadin versus Sal Kazanov quarterfinal sounds pretty fire to me. Takatani is here because he's on the same side as Kyle Dake, and he did push him pretty hard last year, but I think he'll be a bronze medalist in Paris for Japan, losing to Dake in the semifinals. If he was on the other side, he might be my finalist pick for sure. Sal Kazanov I'm also putting here because his matches with Kyle Dake are close, but he is also more of a one-dimensional wrestler compared to some of the other guys in the field, and especially to some of the guys he might draw round one. Plus, the Greek Freak and Komisidis already beat him, so more props to him, but I'm keeping the Greek Freak in Tier 2 as well. Since Kabalov is officially in, I'm also going to slot him here at Tier 2 as well. Him versus Takatani is a must-watch, and I really hope it happens, because the winner of that match is a heavy favorite for bronze, and could really give Kyle Dake a run for his money. Then there is the Iran wrestler in Amani, who had a rough 2023 Worlds, but I can't forget his bronze run in 2022, so he's an easy pick here for Tier 2. Now to wrap up 74 kilograms, originally my tier 1 was only going to be Kyle Dake, but after doing some research, and for those who have been doing the math throughout the video, know I moved this tier to a 3-man tier, with the second wrestler being Zamalov of Uzbekistan, who I believe is still trained out of Dagestan in Russia, along with being a Russian national champ and wins over Sal Kazanov and several others, I think justifies him being in tier 1. And to be honest, I really hope he's on the bottom side because a Zamalov versus Kyle Dake final would be pretty fun in my opinion. Then there is of course Kadi Magomedov, who might be a little bit more controversial, and I think could definitely be in the argument for tier 2. I know he looked really off in 2023, and the same could happen here as well, but I'm leaving him here in tier 1 for just a few reasons. He beat Sal Kazanov recently this year. Besides Sidikov, he's Dake's last actual international loss, and it was a pretty dominant win. Plus he's the returning Olympic silver. So just to be consistent with the rest of the video, I'm putting him here in tier 1. 74 kilograms slowly over the last month became my favorite weight to keep up with. There's just so many outstanding unseeded wrestlers, and I could see this weight being a total mess heading into the quarters. And I'm all here for it, because it will be some outstanding wrestling. I will say Kyle Dake might be the favorite, but his draw is going to make him earn it every step of the way. Even if the other tier 1 wrestlers are on the other side of the bracket, no one has a cakewalk to the finals here. 86 kilograms is a weight that has a lot of really strong talent, but also a lot of talent staying at home. There was, of course, the Russians, who, again, had a great wrestler here banned. Their wrestler was Nafanov. The returning Olympic and world champion David Taylor got knocked out at the USA Trials due to unseeded Aaron Brooks making the team over him, beating him in 2 matches. For those who don't know, we'll talk a little bit more Aaron Brooks here in a little bit. But before that, let's start with our top 8 seeds at 86 kilograms. And to be honest, the 1 versus 8 seed could be pretty wild if there's no upset drama in between them. The 1 seed being Kazakhstan's 2023 and 2022 bronze medalist in Dulabekov. And the 8 seed is another Japan wrestler in Ishiguro, who has a win over Dulabekov actually. Ishiguro is honestly a super fun style to watch and can smash through some people. But then there's sometimes you watch him and he just doesn't look the same. Either way, I think the 1 versus 8 seed could be pretty fun to watch, but there's a lot of unseeded wrestlers that might crash that party. The 4 and 5 seed is another fun potential quarterfinal. The 5 seed Ramazanov from Bulgaria has a lot of top tier wins, and is also, you guessed it, a former Russian. With the 4 seed from Uzbekistan, Shapiev, dropping into the Olympic Games after placing 5th at Worlds last year. Shapiev also has a win over the 1 seed, so it's kind of crazy to think he can make his first World/Olympic final, but has never medaled before. Then we start to get into some serious household names when we jump to the bottom side of the bracket, with returning world and Olympic silver Yazdani of Iran. Yazdani looked like an absolute animal at the ranking series, and with no David Taylor in the field, you would have to say he's the massive favorite here, especially in the eyes of the Iran fans. However, he could have a super fun match pretty early in the tournament, with the 7 seed being Kuruglev of Greece, a former top Russian for their country. Kuruglev, I feel like I say Kuruglev weird compared to how I've heard it before, but I guess I can't do anything about it now. Kruglev has a lot of talent, but is also getting kinda old. So I'm not sure what version of him we'll see, but if we get a top tier version, him versus Yazdani could be a pretty entertaining match. Then to wrap up the seeds, we have the 3 versus 6 seed. The 3 seed is the returning world and Olympic bronze medalist in Miles Amin for San Marino, and another former Michigan wrestling All-American similar to Stefan Micic. He is the 3 seed, and the 6 seed will be... Google Translate, save me now.
Bayambaranjan.
For Mongolia, who doesn't have too much to his name besides a 2018 junior medal. To be honest, this is probably the quad most random draws want to be in. Guess you are on the same side as Yazdani, and Amin is no one you should overlook. But a loss to Yazdani in the semis puts you in the bronze medal match where you only need to win one more match. Both the seeds wrapped up, as usual. Before we get into tiers, there's only 2 unseeded wrestlers I really want to mention. The USA rep in Aaron Brooks, who dethroned the reigning world champ David Taylor, which I don't think many people saw coming. But these 2 wins over David Taylor that Brooks acquired instantly put him in the title conversation. I think Yazdani versus Brooks is one of the most anticipated matches people want to watch. Primarily because there is so many unknowns heading into it, and I really hope we get it. Especially since I think they're both pretty similar in styles. Aaron Brooks is definitely a different style compared to David Taylor, so I'm kind of curious to see how he'll match up with Yazdani. Another unseeded wrestler is Ukraine's Mykolaiv, who is a 2-time 79 kilogram bronze, who is now bumping up to 86 kilograms. He was super close to making it here at the last chance qualifier and was a late pull-in after the Russian boycott. So I think he's pretty draw dependent, but for sure a dark horse, and if you're medaling at any world weight, you definitely deserve to be mentioned. Now to do tiers, we have tier 4 with all unseeded wrestlers on the outside looking in. Starting with Algeria's wrestler Benfer Giala, which this is his 2nd trip to the Olympics. There's also Lawrence from Australia, who to be honest isn't half bad, but it's also kind of a stretch to see him get a medal. North Carolina All-American and Puerto Rico wrestler Ethan Ramos is also here, along with the other Pan Am qualifier in Alex Moore for Canada. To move into tier 3, there is the Mongolia wrestler at the 6th seed, which I'm sure a lot of random draws want, but I think he is a little better than advertised despite the lack of data. The mentioned Ukraine wrestler Mykolaiv, and then another 79 kilogram medalist bumping up is Gem Krlikse, who plays silver for Georgia in 2023, but again at 79 kilograms, so he might be giving up some weight similar to the Ukraine wrestler. Again though, in my mind at least, Olympic weight or not, if you're placing at Worlds, you should at least be a dark horse. Then I made another big tier 2 because 86 kilograms oddly got really deep out of nowhere. Of course, we have a lot of seeded wrestlers with the 1 seed Dulabekov in there. However, he could dang well make the finals. I think Amin is another guy who has proven himself into this tier, but is on the same side as Yazdani, but I don't know, maybe I'm crazy to say there's a match there. Shapiev and Ramazanov both have the talent to place here, but they're probably going to wrestle to make the semifinals, so they both could place, or potentially just one of them or none of them. I think Japan's Ishiguro could dang near make the finals like all the other topside wrestlers. I think the bottom side with the 7 seed Kruglev is a big pick to take bronze after he loses to Yazdani in the quarters, especially since he already has a win over Amin. Then finally in tier 2, there is Nura Magomedov of Azerbaijan, who I've saved until right now, and I'm really excited for him to be a random draw. This dude plays silver, bronze, and bronze the past 3 years at 92 kilograms, and now he's down to 86 and he's unseeded. This is the type of guy that could blow up the top side of the bracket, especially since he has a win over the 5 seed already. Then there is, of course, Aaron Brooks, which some might be mad I have him here in tier 2, but besides his wins over David Taylor and a 2023 U23 gold and some other age level medals, I don't have enough data yet. I understand wins over David Taylor is something only one other person in this field has, and to be honest, I really hope he proves me wrong and wins gold for USA to show my bias a little bit, but just from the lack of data, I have to stay consistent, and I'm keeping him here in tier 2. Finally, the only other tier is tier 1, of course, with just a single wrestler in it in Yazdani for Iran. I wanted to add some wrestlers in, clearly. But if there was no David Taylor, this dude would be a several-time world champ on top of all his post-David Taylor golds already. So I think that gives some justification on why he's on Tier 1 Island for at least now. I think 97 kilograms has no better place to start than the bottom side of the bracket, which is loaded with the returning world champ and bronze medalist at the 2 and 3 seeds. And to sound like a broken record here, the Russian rep, as we all know, Sadulayev, would have also been on this side of the bracket, resulting in a world champ and potentially an Olympic champ from not placing, which is absolutely wild. But maybe in another universe we would have got that scenario because Sadulayev is out here. So let's start with the 3 versus 6 quad on the bottom side of the bracket to switch it up a little bit. Of course, there is Kyle Snyder for USA, the returning world bronze, but also the 2022 gold, 2021 silver, and 2021 Olympic silver, being a gold medalist at both of these events before prior to this quad. The 6th-seeded wrestler is Germany's Thiel, who looked pretty solid at the last chance qualifier. Then to talk about the 2 seed that I'm sure everyone has been waiting for me to get to is a returning world champ from Bahrain, Tazudinov, who tech Kyle Snyder last year in the quarterfinals and smashed his way to a world title after that. He is a super young talent and might be the biggest favorite on paper to win any weight class here at the Olympics. His potential quarterfinal matchup is the 6th seed Yurgali from Kazakhstan, who does have some nice wins over the field, but only recently medaled at U23s with the bronze in 2022. Then as we move over to the top side, we have the 1 seed in Magomedov of Azerbaijan, who was the 2023 silver and 2022 bronze at 97 kilograms. I think there is some guys who could beat him, but he's probably a big favorite for silver here, losing to whoever comes out of the bottom side of the bracket, considering Tazudinov beat him last year in the finals and Kyle Snyder has beat him before. The 8th seed right into him is Barnowicki of Poland, who's one of those fun underdogs that might be fun to follow. This will be his 2nd Olympic Games, the first one being back in Rio in 2016. And he did take silver back during that COVID World Cup in 2020, so maybe a dark horse. Then at the 4 and 5 seeds, starting with the 4, we have Sipsi of Turkey, who took 5th at Worlds to qualify his country. And then behind him at the 5 seed is 2-time bronze medalist in 23 and 22 in Georgia's Machashvili, who is honestly in a really nice spot in the bracket, with a win over Magomedov, who's the 1 seed, so that could honestly be a really fun semifinal match to make the gold medal match. The only unseeded wrestler I'll shout out before we get into tiers is the Iran wrestler on everyone's mind, because he has a very recent win over Kyle Snyder and is unseeded. So Kyle Snyder could very easily get him round 1, or someone very good could get him round 1, and that is Azarpirov of Iran. He was a 92 kilogram guy bumping up here for the games, and the win over Snyder without a doubt gave him the spot here for Iran. I think he is either going to shock some people or not do so hot. Just a lot of back and forth data with him against this field. Honestly, there's a lot of back and forth data with him at 92 kilograms because he wasn't really the guy there a lot either, with Gas and Poor being down there. Alrighty, as we move into tier 4, we got 4 wrestlers, the 2 from the Pan Am qualifier and the 2 from the African qualifier. There's some talent in here, but compared to the top of this field, it's really hard to adjust them anywhere else. Delang of South Africa has a lot of world experience competing at some recent world championships. There's also Elders for Egypt, and again, they aren't bad, but for sure on the outside looking in. Cuba Silot is definitely the best wrestler here in this tier. He's pretty young compared to most Cuban wrestlers competing and has a lot of good skills. Souza from the Dominican Republic, I'm also curious to see compete here. In tier 3 for Dark Horse to Medal, we have a good mixed bag of a few seeded wrestlers and unseeded wrestlers. For seeded wrestlers, we have the 6 seed Thiel, who is just on the toughest side of the bracket possible to place, so that's why he has to be here in tier 3. And the same is true for the 7 seed Yurgali of Kazakhstan. Mitch Chalizi was a pull-in for Ukraine with experience from the 2023 Worlds. Similar to a lot of people that get put in this tier, he's pretty draw dependent. Lefner from Moldova was another Poland as well from the Russian boycotts, with this tier wrapping up with the last chance qualifier third in Habila from China. In tier 2, we'll start with our 1 seed in Magomedov of Azerbaijan, who is a returning silver and probably most people's pick to repeat that. But in my opinion, there's still the 5 seed from Georgia, Metrishvili, who I think could also be a heavy favorite to make the finals here or at least finish in bronze. In my opinion, these two easily run this tier. With other guys like Azapure of Iran, who is a pretty scary random draw, Barnowitsky, who has a lot of experience at the 8 seed for Poland, and then the world 5th place finisher Sipsi for Turkey wraps up the tier. Then, as many would guess, the top tier is Tazuzinov, the returning world champ and 2 seed, with the number 3 seed Kyle Snyder for USA and 2022 world champ owning this tier. I think Tazuzinov has the argument to be the only wrestler in this tier, especially with Snyder's loss to Iran recently. However, Snyder just has so much experience and has medaled every time he's gone to Worlds. I believe this trip could be his 10th world and Olympic medal. And if he wins the whole thing, that's his 4th gold and 2nd Olympic gold. Hard for me not to put Tazuzinov and Snyder in the same tier, even though I understand the argument. Also, don't get me wrong, anything can happen in the sport of wrestling, but whoever comes out of this bottom side of the bracket is going to win gold. I would be shocked if one of these two didn't win gold. Or heck, I'd be really shocked if neither of them even made the finals. That would be crazy, right? Well, we finally reached the big boys, which probably has the most fair seeding between the top tier guys out of any weight class here, hands down. Oh yeah, it might seem a little late now, but for anyone who's unsure how the seating works here at the Olympics or Worlds, please comment down below and we could talk down there. In theory, it's supposed to get more of the top level guys or just anybody really competing more to accumulate rankings points, which you also can get at the World Championships. It's not very traditional compared to most seedings with head-to-heads, and in theory it works a lot better than execution sometimes. And to be fair, sometimes it works pretty well, and in other times it's pretty odd, like at 97 kilograms where Kyle Snyder, Tazudinov, and Sajalayev all would have been on the same side of the bracket. But anyway, 125 kilograms top side, here we come. Starting with the 1 seed, Amir Zare for Iran, the 2023 and 2021 gold medalist, and being the world bronze in 2022 and the Olympic Games in 2021. His 8 seed quad mate is Ziwei Dang, who wrestled pretty tough at the last Olympic qualifier for China and has been on the scene before. He actually has a senior level medal in 2019 with a bronze, and he took 5th at the last Olympics, which with this placement might happen again, to be honest. The 4 and 5 seed squad sees more veterans with Akul of Turkey at the 4, and then the 5 seed being Hungary's heavyweight Daniel Leggetti. Akul won Worlds in 2022 along with a few other golds, silvers, and bronzes in the past few quads. So I think him and Zare are a huge semifinal to circle, and I would be pretty shocked if it didn't happen that way on the top side. They even have this little mini rivalry within this last quad to some degree. Zare won in 2021 in the semis, denying Akul a chance to win gold, where Zare would eventually become the world champ there. Akul would knock Zare off in the 2022 semis, where Akul would be a world champ, and then the same would happen in 2023 with Zare winning gold and Akul winning bronze. So I think it's only fitting that once again they're on the same side here, but at the Olympic Games, and we'll have to see if Zare can end the rivalry once and all 3-1 in his favor, or if Akul can keep the rivalry alive and make it 2-2. To switch to the bottom side of the bracket, we have 2 seed and similar to Akul, a metal machine, being a silver the past 4 years except in 2022 where he was a bronze. He has looked very off this year, so maybe he's on the down of his career, and that wrestler being Geno Petrishvili, the returning Olympic silver. At the 7, also in Geno's quad, is Baran of Poland, who was a pull-in at this weight class. Then in the other quarterfinal of the bottom side of the bracket, there is USA's Mason Paris at the 3, who Geno beat at last year's World Championships at the very end of the match. But Paris outplaced him at the most recent ranking series tournament, pinning an opponent that pinned Petrashvili. Kind of similar to the rivalry between Akul and Zare, but not as many medals thrown around. I think Paris and Petrashvili are perfect to be on this side of the bracket. I think Paris is set up a little bit better than Petrashvili, especially if he's hurt. But they also have this little mini rivalry going on with Paris outplacing him there. And then Geno has that crazy win from last year's World, so we'll just have to wait and see if this will happen once again. However, if Geno is hurt, I wouldn't be as shocked if he didn't make the semis compared to an Akul or Zare. Then to get back to Mason Paris's quad, he could potentially have the 6-seeded wrestler from Azerbaijan, who is Meshvildishvili, who qualified out of Euros, so he's a pretty tough wrestler. Now, this weight is super top heavy, and like I said, the seeds are pretty well done in my opinion, and everyone fell in the right spots for the most part. So the only unseeded wrestler to really mention is Mukhtar from Mongolia, who actually beat Petrashvili in 2022 to make the World Finals, which no one, and I mean no one, saw that coming. But unfortunately, then he failed to place in 2023, and he was actually set to wrestle Mason Paris in the quarterfinals, but didn't even make it that far. So a pretty scary random draw, especially for Geno Petrashvili in my opinion. There's also Bator Mirzaev for Kazakhstan, who beat Geno Petrashvili at the ranking series as well, but then got pinned by Mason Paris. He also got teched by Mason Paris at the 2023 Worlds as well, but still thought I'd mention him here before we start moving into tiers. Also, for those wondering why I'm so high on Petrashvili, even though I keep listing guys who beat him that shouldn't have, trust me, the dude's really good. He's beaten every other great guy in the field, and maybe this last quad wasn't the best to him, but trust me, if he's healthy, he still has the stuff to do it. I got 3 wrestlers to mention here in Tier 4. Puerto Rico's Smith, Nigeria's Mutua, and Egypt's Kamal. Kamal must not be too bad if he beat Maryland's All-American Youssef Hamida, who is usually the heavyweight here for Egypt. But also, to be fair, this will be Kamal's 3rd trip to the Olympics, so that's pretty impressive honestly. In Tier 3, we got dark horses, and by that I mean it would be seriously shocking to see some of these wrestlers place. Sorry to put it that way, but the top 4 here are just so proven. Ukraine's Kotsiolski, I believe that's how you say that, will be representing his country here. The Azerbaijan rep at the 6th seed will be slotted in here at Tier 3, along with the 7th seed Baran from Poland. Then I also included Amar Desi of Canada in this spot, considering he navigated some tough heavyweight world brackets before. He didn't medal in 2022, but he did make the bronze medal match to take 5th. He's also a several-time Oregon State All-American, so he's got some stuff, along with a win over Gwizdowski before. To be honest, Tier 2 could mix in with Tier 3 because I think the Tier 2 guys are definitely better, but they all have the same problem. They're going to have to beat 2 extremely good wrestlers to medal. And that's the problem at every weight class, but when they're evenly separated like this, there's just no easy path like other weight classes. Best bet Petrashvili is hurt, but if not, there is just no easy way for an unseeded wrestler to medal. But anyway, in Tier 2 is the 8 seed Dang from China, Lazarev of Kyrgyzstan, who has beat Legeti of Hungary before, who's the 5 seed, so that's why he's in here, along with Legeti, who will also be in Tier 2. Then to wrap up this tier, the former mentioned Mukhtar for Mongolia, who again, I think is a sneaky unseeded wrestler that has a lot to prove here, along with the Kazakhstan wrestler Batur Mirzaev. Then we reach our final tier, which you all guessed it, is the Big 4 at heavyweight, which we could trace back all the way to 2014 with some of these wrestlers. We have Zare of Iran, Akul of Turkey, Paris of USA, who honestly could have been moved down to Tier 2 because his best win is a transitive property win, but whatever. Then there's Geno Petrashvili for Georgia. I think these 4 have the best chance to make the semis and probably the highest odd to be a semifinal lock, but there's potential injuries, unknown talent, and just total craziness because anything can happen in the sport of wrestling, and we'll be here for every second of it at TrueTan Wrestling. Well everyone, like I said, I made this video for, well, the fans. Wait. I can't forget my honorable mentions section of this video, which I hope you all didn't forget either. And to be honest, I really wanted to include Greco and women's freestyle in here, but I really don't specialize in them anymore. I still know the top tier talent and I watch them every year, don't get me wrong. But if I would have also included them here, I think the research process alone would have just held this video up and it would have never gotten out. So I still want to tip my hat though and give them their honorable mention section and talk about the people that deserve to be talked about. With that said, when this video is released, 130 kilograms Greco, 60 kilograms Greco, so the big and small boys, and 68 kilogram women will have competed their first couple rounds and their finals will be set. And I can guarantee you all I will be up very early watching every single style, not just men's freestyle, so I'm real excited to see everyone compete. But now I've drawn it on long enough, let's get into some of my honorable mentions, shall we? I want to start at the very top of the list with Greco 130 kilograms. Mijan of Cuba will be going for his 5th Olympic gold, which is nuts and gets even crazier when you think about this is his 6th Olympic trip. The Iran wrestler here is also extremely tough, and I bet most people are hoping Mijan's on his side and then they're on the other side, but I think 130 kilograms Greco is going to be absolutely insane, and if you want to watch some big boys get tossed on their head, this is the event for you. I always got to shout out 77 kilogram USA rep Kamal Bey, who was a pull into the event, so he didn't technically qualify through any traditional methods. However, when he is on, he is just so on, and he can be so much fun to watch, so if he gets the right path here, I think he could do really awesome for Team USA. Then on the women's side of things, anyone from Japan will be fun to watch. This is more of a casual viewer perspective, so if a Japan wrestler is on, just keep watching because she is very good. With that said, the USA team for women's freestyle is also extremely solid, especially when you start to go through their accolades, and it's crazy to think we're not even in the conversation with Japan yet. Also, I really want to say I hope Sarah Hildebrandt leg laces Suzaki to the moon. I don't care if Suzaki's already the youngest GOAT ever in women's freestyle. Team USA. This is the honorable mention section, so I'm showing some of my bias. However, on the USA women's team, there is Amit Elor, who will have competed by the time I'm posting this. She's coming down to 68 kilograms, and I heard the weight cut is pretty tough. And 68 kilograms is no cakewalk, so I'm really excited to see her compete there. I think there's like 5 world champions in that bracket. We also have Kayla Miracle as some world finals experience. Helen Maroulis, who is an Olympic champ before and has several world and Olympic medals on top of that. The previous mentioned Sarah Hildebrandt, who has a lot of bronze medals to her name. Dawn Parrish won Worlds in 2022, but failed to place it in 2023. I think she could be an unseated landmine, but is very draw dependent. And then finally, we have Kennedy Blades, who I think could make some serious noise at 76 kilograms. But again, it is extremely top heavy, and if anyone in the field has her figured out, that's not a good thing. Ultimately, I just think Blades needs to be healthy because every world championship she goes to, I swear something happens. But if she's healthy, I mean, she beat Adeline Gray, so she could definitely win this field. And just like that, that's our honorable mentions, and like I said, sit down, watch women's freestyle, watch Greco-Roman, watch men's freestyle, it's all going to be awesome. But now, where was I in the video? Well everyone, like I said, I made this video for, well, the fans, but also the people that might not know too much about wrestling as well. I just remember watching Worlds and Olympics and having no idea who some of these other wrestlers were. And it's even more frustrating when your country loses to a wrestler you don't know. So I started really diving into international wrestling, and with all the coverage it gets now, it's almost easier than NCAAs to keep up with sometimes. That might be a stretch, but whatever. I also think it's a blast because the level of wrestling is just so high. Some of these wrestlers are literally the pinnacle of the sport. But at the end of the day, this video is to entertain, but also to inform you all about all these great athletes because they deserve it. So also don't forget to check out that link below with the Google Sheet with all their results. With that said, I might have missed little things throughout the video because there was just a lot of results to look through. Not trying to make excuses, but if I did miss something, please let me know in the comments section below. Now to wrap it up, let's rank these weight classes in a very true tan fashion. I think 74 kilograms is oddly the deepest, which I wasn't expecting when I came into this. But it oddly has the final boss feeling with Kyle Dake, but then so many other villains within it. Not saying any of these wrestlers are actually bad, I just felt like using the word villain. 65 kilograms, like always, is wild and filled of crazy unseated landmines. I think 86, 97, and 125 are super top heavy, but there could be some fun storylines within. What I really didn't see coming was 86 kilograms being a lot deeper than before. And then also 57 kilograms is so top heavy, but there's also a lot of other landmines in it as well. So I really don't think I could pick a favorite. Probably 74 kilograms and then maybe 65 because I wrestled around that weight. Plus it's just always a wild weight, man. But now, with all that said, I hope you all enjoyed this video because I know I loved every second of researching it, writing it, editing it, and creating it. This video did take a very long time to do all that, so if you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. Along with leaving a comment on your thoughts, or if I missed a wrestler, which I really hope I didn't, let me know in the comments section below. Now, with all that said, take care, everybody, and enjoy the frickin' Olympics.